Level 1. The medical student. You are not a doctor. Not yet. You are a name tag in a short white coat in a department that doesn't slow down for you. The attending barely remembers you're there. The nurses do. They've watched 100 students walk through and they are already measuring you. Not for knowledge, for nerve. Your first shift starts at 6 in the morning. You shadow, you observe. A man comes in clutching his chest. You watch the team move. Fast, coordinated, calm in a way that doesn't look like calm at all. It looks like a language you don't speak yet. You stand slightly to the left of everything useful and try not to be in the way. They let you place the first IV on a cooperative patient. Your hands shake. The patient notices. She smiles anyway. The line goes in. Small victory. You write it down in the notebook you carry everywhere because you're terrified of forgetting something important. You learn one rule on the first day. In the emergency department, confidence is not arrogance. It's speed. The person who hesitates too long costs someone something they may never get back. You are still hesitating, but you are watching. And watching in this place is how everything starts. Level 2. The intern. The long white coat arrives. It means almost nothing in the ED, but you wear it like armor anyway. You are a real doctor now, on paper. The first time a nurse calls you doctor, you turn around looking for the person she's addressing. Your first overnight call hits at the end of week 2. 3 in the morning, a child comes in seizing. You know the protocol. You've read it 40 times. But reading and doing are separated by a distance you can only cross once in real time with a real child. You call your resident. They are there in 90 seconds. You watch. You assist. The seizure breaks. The child opens her eyes. You make your first significant error on a Friday. Wrong dose. Caught by the pharmacist before administration. No harm. But the attending pulls you into a side room and speaks to you quietly. Without anger, which somehow feels worse than anger. You carry that conversation for weeks. You learn that the ED does not offer the same forgiveness as other floors. The margins here are thinner. The gaps between stable and critical are measured in minutes, sometimes seconds. You start arriving 15 minutes early to every shift. Not because anyone told you to. Because you figured out that preparation is the only thing standing between you and the version of yourself you don't want to be. Level 3. The senior resident. You supervise interns now. This is the shift that changes everything. Because teaching forces you to understand what you actually know and what you've only memorized. An intern presents a case to you. 42-year-old male, shortness of breath, clear lungs, normal heart rate, no obvious source. The intern is ready to discharge him. You look at the patient. Something feels wrong and you cannot immediately name it. You order the D-dimer, pulmonary embolism, submassive. The intern stares at you. How did you know? You don't explain it cleanly because clinical gestalt doesn't translate neatly into words yet. It will, but not yet. You start seeing the patterns now. When the way certain presentations cluster, the times of day when specific patients arrive, the diagnoses that look like other diagnoses until one specific detail separates them. You begin building a mental library and the library saves people. You have bad nights. A patient you discharge returns by ambulance 4 hours later. A diagnosis you were certain of turns out to be wrong. You go home at 7 in the morning and sit in your car in the parking lot and stare at the steering wheel for 10 minutes before you can drive. You don't tell anyone. Most of them are doing the same thing in their own cars. You are all learning the same lesson. In emergency medicine, certainty is provisional. Always. Level 4. The fellow. You have matched into emergency medicine fellowship. Ultrasound, toxicology, critical care, pediatric emergency. You chose a lane and you are accelerating into it. The department looks different from this altitude. You see the architecture now, the triage patterns, the resource flows, the invisible negotiations happening between nurses and residents and attendings at every hour of every shift. Your fellowship supervisor is the kind of physician who doesn't explain what she's thinking until after you've committed to an answer. Then she takes it apart with 2 questions. You leave those debriefs feeling smaller and more precise at the same time. You perform your first advanced procedure without direct supervision. The patient survives. You perform 12 more. You notice something important about yourself. You are no longer afraid of the procedure. You are afraid of the complication. That is the correct fear. Beginners fear the needle. Experienced physicians fear what comes after. You start researching. A case you saw 3 months ago still bothers you. You dig into the literature. You find 2 papers that don't fully explain it either. You write up the case. Your supervisor submits it for conference. You stand in front of a room of attendings and present your findings, and one of them asks a question you cannot answer. You write that question down. You spend the next 6 weeks finding the answer. Level 5. The chief resident. You run the department now. Not clinically. The attendings still own the clinical decisions. But operationally, you run it. Schedule conflicts, rotation disputes, coverage gaps that appear on Sunday evenings when no one else is available to solve them. You solve them. The phone rings at 11:47 at night. A resident has called in sick. You work the shift yourself. You've been awake since 6. You work until 4 in the morning, and then you review the next month's schedule in the break room with cold coffee. No one sees this. It doesn't matter. You mediate your first serious conflict between a resident and a nurse. Both are right. Both are wrong. You find the version of the resolution that lets both people keep their dignity and return to working together by the next shift. This is harder than any procedure you have ever performed. You develop a quality improvement project. You notice that the door to ECG time for chest pain patients in your department runs 11 minutes on weekday mornings and 22 minutes on weekend nights. You build a protocol, you test it, you present the data. The difference drops to 9 minutes on average. Somewhere in that data is a person who didn't die. You will never know their name. That is fine. That is the work. Level 6, the attending. Your name is on the board now, not as trainee or fellow, as the doctor of record, the one the nurses call first, the one whose signature authorizes the decision. The weight of it arrives gradually and then all at once on a single shift when everything goes wrong simultaneously, and you are the only one in the room who doesn't look frightened. You learn to project calm, not fake calm, that collapses under pressure. Functional calm, the kind that slows a room down when a room needs slowing. A trauma rolls in. GSW to the chest. The team looks at you. You start talking. Quiet, specific, sequential. The team moves. The patient reaches surgery alive. You work holidays. Watch you work New Year's Eve and the night the city floods and the morning after a mass casualty event when the department is still processing what it absorbed. You go home and you sit quietly and then you come back. You start noticing which residents are going to be excellent and which ones need redirection before they become a problem. You have the harder conversation first. You say the uncomfortable thing clearly and without cruelty, and then you move on. The residents who hear you grow faster. The ones who resist will figure it out eventually or find a different specialty. The pay improves. The status arrives. Neither of them is the thing that keeps you coming back. What keeps you coming back is harder to name. Something about the department, the pace of it, the specific mathematics of emergency medicine, where skill plus speed plus judgment equals survival. Level 7, the department director. The clinical shifts don't stop. You still work them. But now there are also meetings, budget meetings, administration meetings, credentialing meetings, meetings about the meetings. You discover that running an emergency department is not primarily a medical job. It is a negotiation. You negotiate for staff. The hospital wants to run leaner. You explain with data what leaner costs in patient outcomes. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. You learn to choose your battles and to win the important ones by building the argument months before anyone else sees the fight coming. A never event occurs in your department. A medication error. No fatal outcome, but a serious one. Will you lead the root cause analysis? You sit in the room with the family. You speak clearly and without deflection, and you do not hide behind institutional language. This is the hardest conversation you have had in your career. You have it anyway. Then you fix the system so it cannot happen the same way twice. You recruit a physician who is better than you in 2 specific areas. You hire her immediately. Smaller directors fear competition. You've learned that the department gets stronger every time you bring in someone exceptional. The work is larger than any individual ego. You remind yourself of this on the days when the administration makes a decision you believe is wrong. The department starts appearing in the top quartile of patient outcome benchmarks. You show the data at a board meeting. The board applauds. Watch you go back to your office and start working on the metrics that aren't good enough yet. Level 8, the medical director. Your footprint expands beyond one building. You oversee emergency services across a system now. Multiple sites, multiple departments, different patient populations with different needs. What worked in one building requires translation to work in another. You travel between facilities. You sit in rooms with people who have never worked a trauma bay, and you translate the department's needs into the language those rooms understand. This is a skill that took years to build, and it is not taught in medical school. It is built through failure, through presenting proposals that got rejected, through framing arguments the wrong way, through learning that data alone is insufficient and that narrative is always load-bearing. You develop a system-wide protocol for sepsis recognition. You implement it. You track it. 6 months later, mortality from septic shock in your system drops measurably. This is larger than anything you could have done from inside a single department. You begin to understand why the administrative work matters, not because it's more important than the bedside, but because it multiplies the bedside across thousands of patients you will never personally treat. You mentor a young attending who reminds you of yourself at 31. You are careful with her. You give her the feedback you wish someone had given you earlier. You also give her the opportunities you had to create for yourself. She is better for it. The department is better for it. The work compounds. Level 9, the system chief. You are no longer primarily a physician. You are a strategist who used to be a physician and who still works one clinical shift per week because you made a promise to yourself that you would never lose the thing that made the rest of it matter. The decisions you make now affect hundreds of physicians and thousands of patients. A staffing model change ripples through 12 departments. A contract negotiation affects salaries across an entire system. You sit in executive meetings and you are often the only person in the room who has personally intubated a patient. You are aware of this. You use it carefully. You develop a residency partnership with the medical school. 40 trainees per year moving through your system. You build the curriculum. You sign the agreements. You see the first cohort graduate and you watch them become the kind of doctors you spent your career trying to be. A crisis arrives, a mass casualty event, a pandemic wave, a system failure that no protocol fully anticipated. You do not have all the answers. You have something more useful. You have the experience to know which questions to ask first and the relationships to get those questions answered fast. The system holds. You find yourself thinking differently now, not in shifts, in quarters, in years, in the trajectories of institutions. You still love emergency medicine, but the version of it you practice has become almost entirely invisible, running inside systems and decisions that express themselves on the floor without your fingerprints showing. Level 10, the ghost. You step back from the title, not retirement. That word doesn't fit this work. You simply stop holding the formal positions. You consult, you advise, you teach. You work the occasional clinical shift because the department still asks for you, and because an afternoon in triage with a junior attending beside you is worth more than any lecture you've ever delivered. The residents who trained under you are now attendings. Some of them are directors. One runs a department you helped build. They call you occasionally when something genuinely difficult arrives, not for the answer, because they already know the answer, but because they want to hear your voice frame the question the way you always framed it. Calm, specific, consequence-driven. You are no longer in the org chart. You are something older than an org chart. Institutional memory, a name that circulates in conversations you are not part of. A standard that junior physicians measure themselves against without fully knowing why they're measuring against it. The department keeps running. New interns arrive in July, white coats pressed, notebooks ready, standing slightly to the left of everything useful. They don't know your name yet. They will, or they won't. Either way, the department doesn't wait. Somewhere right now, a 26-year-old in a short white coat is watching a team move around a chest pain patient and thinking, I don't speak this language yet. They will spend the next decade learning it. Some will leave, some will stay and become the machine. And the machine, as it always has, will keep running. The cycle begins.